I was 16 when my world shattered completely. My name is Roger, and today, at 34, I run a successful tech company with over 100 employees. But that success was built from absolute zero after my parents abandoned me as a teenager with nothing but a note and $200. Now, 18 years later, they have suddenly reappeared in my life with outrageous demands that I financially support my divorced sister and her kids. Apparently, it is my duty as her successful big brother. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button before I share this shocking story of betrayal and survival. Growing up in Oakridge, a modest, middle-class neighborhood in Michigan, my childhood seemed relatively normal on the surface. My father, James, worked as a factory manager at the local automotive plant, putting in long hours to keep our family comfortable. My mother, Diana, supplemented our household income as a part-time nurse at the community hospital, often taking night shifts when finances got tight. 10 years, my junior, my sister, Amanda, completed our family unit. From my earliest memories, it was clear that my parents doted on Amanda. She was their miracle baby born after they thought they could not have any more children following complications with my birth. While I never doubted they cared for me in their way, there was always an emotional distance I could feel, but never quite explain as a child. Amanda received the newest clothes, the latest toys, and seemingly unlimited patience. My achievements from honor roll to winning the regional science competition were acknowledged with quick congratulations before the conversation inevitably turned to Amanda learning a new dance move or making a finger painting. Despite this imbalance, I loved my family fiercely. I reasoned that perhaps Amanda simply needed more attention, or maybe my parents found it easier to connect with her bubbly personality than with my more serious, analytical nature. My passion for technology emerged early. By 12, I was taking apart and reassembling computers, learning programming from library books, and fixing neighbors' computers for small fees. My parents viewed my interest as a peculiar hobby rather than a potential career path. They encouraged more traditional aspirations, like becoming a doctor or lawyer. Still, I persisted using my earnings from small repair jobs to buy components and build my own systems. These early entrepreneurial efforts taught me self-reliance and problem-solving skills that would prove invaluable sooner than I could have imagined. Looking back, there were subtle warning signs of what was to come. The occasional whispered arguments about money that abruptly stopped when I entered the room, bills stacked on the counter with red final notice stamps. My father, coming home earlier than usual, face grim, refusing to discuss his day. The economic recession had begun to grip our region with factories closing one after another. Still, nothing prepared me for what happened in the winter of my 16th year. The night that changed everything remains seared in my memory. I had stayed up late working on a computer project and was heading to the kitchen for a midnight snack when I overheard my parents in intense conversation. Pausing in the hallway shadow, I listened as my father declared they were completely broke. The factory had announced mass layoffs, and he had received notice that day. My mother was sobbing, quietly mentioning overdue mortgage payments and maxed-out credit cards. What I heard next froze my blood. My father had been offered a position at a smaller factory in Arizona. The pay was less, but the cost of living was lower, and it represented their only chance to avoid complete financial ruin. Here is where my world shattered. My mother asked, "What about the kids?" My father replied, "We can only afford to take Amanda. Roger is practically an adult now. He can fend for himself. We will leave him some cash. He can stay with Jack's family until he figures something out." I stood there unable to breathe as my mother initially protested but then gradually accepted the unthinkable plan. They talked about how I was mature, resourceful, and independent, how I had always been able to take care of myself, how this was actually an opportunity for me to grow up and become a man. They convinced themselves they were doing me a favor. I crept back to my room, unable to process the betrayal unfolding. Surely they would reconsider by morning. Surely they would not actually abandon their own son. The next morning, I woke to an unusually quiet house. Stumbling into the kitchen, I found a handwritten note on the table alongside $200 in cash. The note explained they had left before dawn to start their new life in Arizona. That they were sorry things had to be this way. That they were sure I would be fine on my own since I was always so independent. That they would be in touch soon. That they loved me. I sank to the floor, note crumpled in my fist as the full weight of abandonment crushed down on me. My family was gone. I was alone. The initial shock gave way to a desperate scramble for survival. I called my best friend Jack, my voice breaking as I explained what had happened. His family took me in temporarily, their faces reflecting horror at my parents' actions. For the first few weeks, I moved through life in a fog of disbelief and raw pain. I kept checking my phone, expecting a call saying they had made a terrible mistake and were coming back. That call never came. Reality set in quickly. Jack's family, while kind, could not support me indefinitely with their own financial struggles. Using my savings and the $200, I found a tiny studio apartment with monthly rent I could just barely afford. I increased my computer repair business, took a weekend job at a convenience store, and picked up lawn mowing gigs whenever possible. Every morning I woke at 5 to complete homework before school. Every night I worked until midnight or later. Sleep became a luxury I could rarely afford. Somehow, I managed to continue attending high school, though my grades slipped from A's to B's and occasional C's as I balanced education with survival. Sympathetic teachers provided quiet support, sometimes leaving grocery store gift cards in my locker or connecting me with resources for independent minors. I never told school officials the full truth, fearing I would be placed in the foster system and lose what little control I had over my life. The first Thanksgiving alone was the hardest. I sat in my barren apartment, eating a microwave dinner, staring at my phone, waiting for a call that never came. Christmas was no better. I worked a double shift at the convenience store, volunteering to cover for coworkers with families. The pain of abandonment cut deepest during these holiday moments when the absence of family was most pronounced. During those early months, I made several attempts to contact my parents. Calls went unanswered. Emails received brief, vague responses about them being very busy settling in. The promised regular contact never materialized. After 6 months, communication ceased entirely. With no means to travel to Arizona and an increasing need to focus on my own survival, I eventually stopped trying. The wound remained raw, but I forced myself to move forward, channeling my hurt into determination to build a future on my own terms. With high school graduation approaching, I faced new challenges. While my classmates received college acceptance letters and parental financial support, I was entirely on my own. Community college became my practical first step. Working full-time while taking evening classes, I maintained a perfect GPA, despite my exhausting schedule. My focus narrowed to a singular goal-building expertise in computer science and software development that would eventually translate to financial independence. Those 2 years at community college tested my limits. Most days began at dawn and ended well past midnight, with barely a moment to breathe between work shifts and classes. I lived on ramen noodles and discount grocery items, calculating each expense down to the penny. My apartment remained furnished with second-hand items and milk crates serving as bookshelves. Yet, despite these hardships, I discovered something powerful within myself, an unyielding resilience and capacity for hard work that surpassed anything I thought possible. My academic performance earned me a partial scholarship to the state university, supplemented by student loans I took in my own name. The transition to university life brought new opportunities and challenges. While other students participated in campus social activities, I continued working multiple jobs now, including a position in the university computer lab and freelance coding projects. Every hour was accounted for, every dollar stretched to its maximum potential. The turning point in my academic journey came when Professor Thompson took notice of my work in his advanced programming class. Staying after lectures to ask questions and submit extra projects, I caught his attention not just with my technical skills, but with my unwavering work ethic. One afternoon, he called me into his office and asked point blank about my background. Something in his genuine concern broke through my carefully constructed walls, and I found myself sharing my story of abandonment and struggle. Rather than pity, Professor Thompson offered mentorship and practical support. He connected me with industry contacts, recommended me for competitive internships, and sometimes simply provided a listening ear when the weight of my solitary journey became too heavy. His guidance proved invaluable when I attempted my first entrepreneurial venture during my senior year, developing an inventory management system for small businesses. That first startup attempt failed spectacularly. Technical issues plagued the software, potential clients were sparse, and my inexperience in business operations became painfully apparent. The failure hit hard, compounding old feelings of inadequacy stemming from my abandonment. For a brief period, I questioned everything, wondering if my parents had been right to discard me. Perhaps I truly was not worth the investment of their time and resources. This dark moment became a crucial turning point. Rather than succumbing to defeat, I meticulously analyzed what went wrong. I identified gaps in my business knowledge, weaknesses in my approach to client relationships, and shortcomings in the product itself. Each failure point became a learning opportunity, a stepping stone toward future success. The experience transformed my motivation, from simply proving my worth to genuinely creating something valuable that solved real problems. Upon graduation, I accepted a developer position at a mid-sized tech firm in Seattle. While building my professional experience, I continued refining my own software concepts during evenings and weekends. 2 years later, I took the calculated risk of leaving my stable job to launch my second startup venture, this time armed with experienced industry connections and a thoroughly tested product idea. The foundation was stronger. The early days of Horizon Solutions were anything but glamorous. I converted my small apartment living room into an office, sleeping on the couch to use the bedroom as a meeting space when potential investors visited. Working 18-hour days, I developed the core software while simultaneously pitching to clients and seeking seed funding. The first breakthrough came 6 months in when a regional retail chain adopted our customer analytics platform, and their sales increased by 22% within the first quarter. Word spread within the industry. Suddenly, investors who had previously ignored my emails were calling with interest. With initial funding secured, I hired 2 brilliant developers I had connected with during my university days. Our team expanded to 5, then 12, then 30 over the next 3 years as our suite of business intelligence products gained traction in the market. By year 5, Horizon Solutions employed over 100 people across 3 offices with our headquarters in a downtown Seattle high-rise. Financial success followed company growth. The days of counting pennies for ramen noodles transformed into the ability to purchase a modern home overlooking the Puget Sound. I invested carefully, remembering all too well the fragility of financial security. My lifestyle remained relatively modest compared to my resources, a psychological after effect of years spent in survival mode. The validation of success was not in luxury purchases, but in knowing I would never again be vulnerable as I had been at 16. As my professional life flourished, I worked to address the emotional scars left by abandonment. Initially resistant to therapy, I finally began sessions at the urging of Sarah, a kind and insightful woman I met at a technology conference. Our relationship developed, gradually built on mutual respect and transparency. Unlike previous relationships, where I had kept emotional walls firmly in place with Sarah, I slowly shared my full story, including the abandonment that had shaped so much of my life. Sarah provided the emotional safety I had never experienced in my family of origin. Her consistent presence and unwavering support helped me recognize unhealthy patterns in how I approached relationships, always expecting eventual abandonment. Through therapy and her patient understanding, I began dismantling these protective mechanisms that no longer served me. For the first time, I allowed myself to be truly vulnerable with another person, to trust that connection did not inevitably lead to betrayal. Together, we created new traditions to replace the family experiences I had lost. Thanksgiving became a gathering of friends who, like me, were without family or far from home. Christmas evolved into a week of volunteer work, followed by a quiet celebration focused on gratitude rather than gifts. These chosen family bonds filled spaces that had remained empty for years, creating a sense of belonging I had long forgotten was possible. My home became a sanctuary, thoughtfully designed to provide the comfort and security I had lacked for so long. My loyal retriever, Apollo, offered the unconditional affection I had craved as a teenager. Each element of my life was intentionally cultivated to support healing and growth, to transform from merely surviving to genuinely thriving. Though thoughts of my biological family occasionally surfaced, particularly during milestone moments, I had created a fulfilling life entirely on my own terms. The abandonment that once defined me had become simply one chapter in a much larger story. The email arrived on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon as I reviewed quarterly projections with my executive team. My assistant mentioned an urgent message had come through on my personal account, so during a brief break, I checked my phone. The name in my inbox stopped my breath. Cold Diana Warren, my mother. After 18 years of silence, she had suddenly reappeared in my digital life as casually as if we had spoken last week. My hands trembling slightly, I excused myself from the meeting and retreated to my private office. The message was brief and surreally casual. Roger, hope this finds you well. We have seen articles about your business success and are so proud. There are some family matters we need to discuss. Could we arrange a video call this week? Love, Mom. The emotional whirlwind that followed defies simple description. Anger surged, first hot and immediate. How dare she contact me now? After nearly 2 decades of silence, the audacity of her casual tone, as if she had not participated in abandoning her teenage son with nothing but a note and some cash. Then came curiosity, insidious and unwelcome. What family matters? Why now? Anxiety followed, then a deep sadness, as long-suppressed memories resurfaced. The conflicted teenager I thought I had outgrown suddenly lived again in my chest, yearning for parental love while simultaneously knowing better. For 3 days, the email sat unanswered as I processed my reaction with my therapist and with Sarah. My therapist cautioned that their sudden reappearance likely served their interests rather than mine, while Sarah simply promised to support whatever decision I made. After considerable reflection, I composed a brief, neutral response, agreeing to a video call the following Sunday, reasoning that understanding their motivation would provide closure, if nothing else. I prepared meticulously for the call, arranging my home office to reveal little about my personal life. Sarah remained nearby in the living room, providing moral support while respecting my desire to handle this conversation privately. When my computer chimed with the incoming call notification, I took a deep breath and clicked accept. Coming face to face with my parents for the first time since adolescence. They had aged, of course. My father's dark hair had turned completely silver, deep lines, etching his once smooth face. My mother had gained weight, her blonde hair now a carefully maintained ash brown. They sat close together on a floral couch I did not recognize in a living room that offered glimpses of comfortable middle-class life. Neither appeared to be suffering financially, their casual but quality clothing, and the visible background suggesting stability, if not luxury. The initial conversation was painfully awkward. They commented on how well I looked, how successful I had become, how they had followed my career through business publications and social media. I maintained a neutral expression, responding with minimal words, waiting for them to reveal their true purpose. When my father finally mentioned being sorry about how things had worked out years ago, the deliberately vague phrasing ignited my anger anew. Not sorry for abandoning me. Sorry about how things had worked out, as if our separation had been an unfortunate weather event rather than their conscious choice. After 20 minutes of increasingly uncomfortable small talk, they finally broached their actual reason for contact. My sister Amanda, now 28, had recently divorced her husband of 6 years. She had 2 children, a 5-year-old boy and 3-year-old girl, and was struggling financially as a part-time administrative assistant. Her ex-husband was inconsistent with child support payments, and she had moved back to my parents' house temporarily. My mother leaned closer to the camera, her expression shifting to one I recognized from childhood, the look she used when trying to extract agreement. We have been helping as much as we can, but retirement has not been as comfortable as we planned. When we saw the articles about your company valuation and success, we realized you are in a position to help your sister. Family takes care of family, Roger. Amanda needs support to get back on her feet, and as her brother, especially one who has been so blessed financially, it is your duty to help. The calculated nature of their approach became instantly clear. They had not reached out to reconnect, to apologize genuinely for their abandonment, or to build a relationship. They had identified me as a financial resource for my sister, a sister who had been 10 when they took her and left me behind a sister I no longer knew. The realization was both painful and clarifying. Despite my success and the life I had built to them, I remained a utility rather than a person with his own experiences and feelings. I ended the call after non-committally stating I would consider their situation needing time to process this unexpected development. That single conversation opened a floodgate. Within days, detailed emails arrived outlining specific financial needs, help with a down payment on a house for Amanda and her children, private school tuition, a reliable car, monthly support until she could secure better employment. Each request came wrapped in emotional manipulation, invoking family obligation, Christian duty, and the blessings I had received that should be shared. My mother began calling directly her approaches, alternating between tearful pleas about her grandchildren needing stability and pointed comments about how a truly successful man takes care of his family. My father sent terse messages about responsibility and stepping up conveniently, forgetting he had abdicated his own parental responsibility when I needed him most. The coordinated campaign intensified over weeks, expanding to include occasional mentions of their own financial needs for retirement security. Just as I was formulating boundaries to address this situation, Amanda herself unexpectedly entered the picture. Without warning or appointment, she appeared at my office reception one Tuesday afternoon, her name being called through to my office before I could decline the unscheduled visit. Seeing my adult sister for the first time in 18 years was jarring. The 10-year-old girl in my memories had become a woman with our mother's eyes and a practiced vulnerability that seemed calculated rather than genuine. Our conversation began with her expressing amazement at my success and pride in her big brother, though she had made no attempt to contact me independently until now. As she spoke about her difficult divorce and challenges as a single mother, I listened with growing awareness of the rehearsed quality of her narrative. When she finally came to the point asking directly for significant financial support, I asked the question that had been burning within me: why had she never reached out before learning of my financial success? Her answer shattered any remaining illusions. "We always knew how to reach you, Roger. Mom and Dad kept track of you through friends back home and later through business news. They said it was best to let you live your own life, since you had chosen to stay behind when we moved. When I was old enough to understand what had happened, I just followed their lead. We never expected you to be so successful, to be honest. But now that you are, it seems only right for you to help family. The revelation was staggering. Not only had they abandoned me, they had rewritten the narrative entirely, casting me as having chosen independence. More shocking was learning they had monitored my life from afar, never reaching out during my struggles, waiting until I had something they wanted before making contact. The calculated nature of their approach became undeniable, as did Amanda's complicity in the revised family history. As if sensing my growing resistance, the pressure tactics escalated dramatically. Extended family members I barely remembered began sending messages through social media, expressing disappointment in my apparent unwillingness to help my sister. My parents began mentioning Amanda and her children to business associates in our shared extended network, creating uncomfortable situations where colleagues asked about my family relationships. The coordinated effort to leverage social pressure revealed the manipulative depth to which they would sink. The demands themselves grew increasingly unreasonable. What began as requests for help with necessities expanded to include luxury items, vacation funding, and investments in speculative business ideas Amanda was considering. Each rejection on my part was met with escalating emotional warfare, accusations of selfishness, and reminders of family obligation that conveniently overlooked their own failures in that department. The boundary violations accumulated, creating a growing tension that would inevitably reach a breaking point. That breaking point arrived during a dinner party I was hosting for close friends and business associates at my home. Sarah and I had spent days preparing, creating a special evening to celebrate the launch of our company's newest product line. Midway through the main course, my doorbell rang insistently. Apollo barked in confusion at the unusual interruption, and conversations paused as I excused myself to answer. Opening the door revealed my father, mother Amanda, and her 2 children standing on my porch. Without invitation or warning, they had located my home address and arrived as a unit, clearly intending to use the public setting to their advantage. My father pushed forward without greeting, stating loudly enough for dinner guests to hear that they were family and did not need an invitation. The children, clearly coached, ran forward with cries of Uncle Roger, though they had never met me before. The scene unfolded with excruciating awkwardness as my parents introduced themselves to my stunned dinner guests. Amanda positioned her children prominently, and my father made pointed comments about family finally reuniting after my long absence from their lives. The calculated public ambush was designed to prevent rejection, to force acceptance through social pressure and embarrassment. For a few moments, I froze in disbelief at the boundary violation playing out in my home. Sarah appeared at my side, quietly supportive, as she helped settle the unexpected arrivals while I excused myself briefly to regain composure. In those few moments alone, clarity washed over me. This pattern would never end without direct intervention. The manipulation would continue, escalating boundaries would be repeatedly violated, and my hard-won peace would be sacrificed on the altar of family obligation, defined entirely on their terms. Returning to the dining room, I found my father holding court, sharing sanitized stories of my childhood while completely omitting their abandonment. When he began speaking about how families must support each other through difficulties, looking pointedly at me while mentioning Amanda's financial needs, something shifted within me. Years of therapy, self-work, and healing crystallized into a moment of absolute clarity and strength. I spoke calmly but firmly, cutting through his monologue. I need to clarify something important. My parents abandoned me when I was 16 years old. They left me with $200 and a note while they moved to Arizona with my sister. I put myself through high school while working multiple jobs to afford rent on an apartment. I have not heard from any of them in 18 years until recently, when they discovered my financial success and decided to contact me for money. The room fell silent. My father started to protest, but I continued, my voice steady. I have the note they left. I have the empty bank account statements. I have the rental agreement I signed as a minor, using a friend's older brother as a guarantor. What I do not have is 18 years of family connection, holiday memories, graduation, celebrations, or any relationship with the people, now asking me to financially support them. Amanda, visibly shaken, turned to our parents. "You told me Roger chose to stay behind. You said he wanted independence and refused to come with us. I believed you all these years." My mother attempted to intervene, but Amanda continued, her voice rising. "You told me he cut contact with us, that he rejected our family. But that is not what happened, is it?" The carefully constructed family narrative unraveled publicly as truth emerged. My dinner guests sat in uncomfortable witness to the family drama, while my parents stammered through increasingly unbelievable justifications. Finally, unable to maintain the facade, my father resorted to ultimatums, declaring I needed to decide whether I wanted to be part of the family or not, with financial support for Amanda being the price of admission. With a calm I did not know I possessed, I asked them all to leave. "This is not how family treats each other. This is not love or connection. This is exploitation, and I will not participate in it. My home and my life are not open to people who view me only as a resource, rather than as a person. I am willing to get to know my niece and nephew gradually on appropriate terms, but there will be no financial bailout or blank checks." After their stunned departure and many apologies to my guests, the evening slowly regained some normalcy, though the dramatic confrontation lingered in the air. Later, when only Sarah remained, the emotional toll finally hit. I alternated between cathartic tears and unexpected laughter at the absurdity of the situation, grateful for her steady presence, as I processed the public collapse of the family myth and my own reclamation of my narrative. The days following brought expected backlash. Angry messages accused me of public humiliation and family betrayal, ironically oblivious to the hypocrisy of such charges. My parents threatened various consequences, from family excommunication to vague legal actions, all ultimately meaningless given our non-existent relationship. Throughout this emotional onslaught, I maintained my newly established boundaries with the support of my therapist and Sarah. After careful consideration, I crafted a comprehensive email establishing clear terms for any future contact. I would not provide unlimited financial support to anyone. I was willing to establish a modest educational fund for my niece and nephew, accessible when they reached college age. I would consider helping Amanda with specific job training or education to improve her employment prospects, but not with ongoing living expenses. Any relationship moving forward would require acknowledgement of the true, past, genuine apology and respect for my boundaries. The response divided along unexpected lines. My parents reacted with outrage at my conditions, declaring them insulting and insufficient. Amanda, however, sent a separate message expressing shock at learning the true circumstances of our family separation and apologizing for her unwitting participation in the manipulation. She requested time to process everything but expressed interest in establishing a more honest relationship moving forward independent of financial considerations. Standing firm on my boundaries proved both difficult and liberating. Years of abandonment issues had created deep-seated patterns of seeking approval and avoiding rejection. Each angry message from my parents triggered old wounds, momentarily shaking my resolve before I regained equilibrium. Sarah and my closest friends provided crucial support during these wobbling moments, reminding me of my worth beyond family validation and the integrity of my position. Gradually, the emotional storm subsided. My parents eventually realized their manipulation tactics would not succeed, and communication decreased dramatically. Amanda began tentative, independent contact, slowly building a new relationship based on honesty rather than exploitation. I met my niece and nephew in an appropriate setting, establishing myself as an uncle interested in their development rather than an ATM for their expenses. The educational fund I established for them remained a separate matter, not a bargaining chip in relationship building. The entire experience, though painful, proved transformative. The final confrontation with my family of origin forced me to articulate my worth and boundaries in ways that strengthened every aspect of my life. Professional relationships improved as I brought this same clarity to business interactions. My relationship with Sarah deepened through the vulnerability and strength she witnessed. Most importantly, I finally released the lingering hope that my parents might someday acknowledge their abandonment and provide the apology I had unconsciously sought for decades. True healing came not from receiving validation from those who had hurt me, but from validating myself through enforced boundaries and self-respect. The abandoned teenager finally found peace, not through family reunion, but through recognizing that family is defined by consistent love and respect rather than biological connection. The greatest lesson emerged from the very pain I had spent years trying to escape. Our worth is inherent, not determined by others' acceptance or rejection of us. Throughout this journey, I discovered that forgiveness does not require forgetting or vulnerable re-exposure to those who have proven unsafe. Forgiveness became an internal process of releasing the power past wounds held over my present happiness. I could acknowledge my parents' humanity and flaws without excusing their actions or allowing continued exploitation. This nuanced understanding brought freedom from the binary thinking that had kept me emotionally entangled for too long. The path from abandoned teenager to boundary-setting adult taught me that our greatest struggles often birth our greatest strengths. Every challenge in building my life independently developed resilience, determination, and self-reliance that now serve me in every area of life. The very abandonment that once felt like my defining wound became instead the catalyst for creating a life authentic to my values rather than reactive to others' expectations. What does family mean to you? Is it defined by blood or by consistent love and respect? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to support more content exploring complex family dynamics and personal growth. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember that you always have the power to write your own life story regardless of how others have treated you in the past. Your worth is not determined by those who failed to see it.